Hey everybody, this is Tim Charron, and welcome to my brand new podcast called the Charron Zone. Blah, 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 blah. Download your free guide to booking gigs at howtobookgigs.com. Welcome to the Charron Zone. I am extremely excited because my guest is the one and only songwriter Jason Blume, coming to you from Hawaii. How are you, Jason?
Better than I deserve.
I love it.
How about you, Tim?
I'm doing great. I am doing fantastic. So I want to dive into this, but I want to let everyone know your bio. So it's very impressive. So everybody listen up. Jason is a songwriter with over 50 million album sales. He has had singles on Billboard's pop, country, and R&B charts all at the same time, which is pretty incredible. He also has 3 books on songwriting published by Billboard, which years ago, that's how I was introduced to Jason, through his books. And then when I moved to Nashville, I would take his workshops at BMI all the time. They were absolutely phenomenal, and I highly recommend them. I know that you're doing them online as well. So for anybody who is into songwriting or being a recording artist or anything, Jason's workshops are just invaluable. So what I wanted to do is ask you a little bit about some of your, I would say, favorite accomplishments.
Well, I got to tell you, hearing you recite my bio, it's just mind-boggling for me. I sit here wanting to pinch myself, saying, oh my gosh, how did that happen? It seemed like 5 minutes ago I was taking every class and struggling and working so hard and dreaming of someday publishing one song. And somehow now I get to say, gosh, I've had 6 singles on the country charts, including the big one, the one that played on the doorbell of the house that it paid for was John Berry's version of Change My Mind, that had also been recorded by the Oak Ridge Boys. That was my first really big breakthrough in country music. But I'm probably best known for being the first collaborator with Britney Spears. But please don't hold that against me. And I worked on the first 2 Britney albums, and then also got to work with the Backstreet Boys and get a song on their Millennium album. So I have been one lucky songwriter who worked his butt off but was in the right place at the right time. And in a lot of ways, I think that was not a coincidence. Yes, I got lucky. I also put myself in a lot of those right places.
And speaking of which, what I wanted to dive right into with you, because I know some of your stories about when you were starting your career. And so I'd like to just, touch on that and let us know some of the stories about, how you started and
Sure.
what you went through to get your career moving.
Okay. I never tell this part of the story. It's crazy that it never really even crosses my mind. But when you said where it started, it did not start with moving to Los Angeles to be a star. Really, it started with playing in the Philadelphia area and at Penn State, where I went to school, in little coffee houses.
Yep.
And I played with a trio. I played as a solo, doing, Joni Mitchell and James Taylor and Cat Stevens songs, people like that, because I'm old. But then in Philadelphia, I was also a strolling mandolin player at an Italian cafe and would occasionally sneak in some original songs. But that's really where it started. And I did a 3-song guitar vocal demo. And I knew in my soul, a year after, I guess almost 2 years after graduating from college, I had been working in a psychiatric hospital, which is really perfect training for the insane music business.
Yes.
And but I knew in my heart I would never forgive myself. I would never be comfortable if I didn't give it 1,000% to be a singer and songwriter. And I packed up everything I owned, everything that would fit into my little Datsun Honeybee, and I had a grand total of $400 to get me from Philadelphia to Los Angeles, where I didn't know anybody in the music business, no connections, no clue. I had my little 3-song demo and I was going to be a star in 1 year. That's what I decided. And I drove cross country, and it's crazy. You know, it's interesting, Tim. I don't know why. Things are hitting me right now that I never think about. I'm remembering that when I drove through Colorado Springs, I saw a double rainbow, and I had never seen a double rainbow before. And it was like, that was my sign. That was my reminder to keep doing what I was doing. So I wound up in Los Angeles, and I decided I don't want to work. I had a college degree. I had worked in a psychiatric hospital. I didn't want a full-time job. I had not given up everything to move to Los Angeles in order to work 40 hours a week and have no energy and no time left for writing. So I got a part-time job, and it was 15 hours a week. Now, I had been certain that I would have a Mercedes in my driveway in a year.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I maybe even sooner, but I was giving it a year. And the truth is that within 2 weeks, I had a Mercedes in my driveway, because part of my part-time job was taking rich people's Mercedes to the car wash. I also took their dry cleaning, and I did some of their grocery shopping. I watered their plants. And with the money I earned working only 15 hours a week, what I could afford was one room, not a whole apartment, a room, meaning no bathroom, no kitchen. And this was in the most horrible part of Hollywood. It didn't look bad when I moved there compared to ghetto. When I saw ghettos in Philadelphia, I knew I'm in a ghetto. It didn't look so bad when I found this room in Hollywood until I went to move in, and there was a SWAT team on the roof of my building shooting at people. So I had to sort of wait in my car to move in, you know, about half a block away.
Welcome to Hollywood.
Yes, exactly. It was quite an education. I lived in a room, like I said, no kitchen, no bathroom. I was not lonely because I had plenty of cockroaches and mice, but I also had really interesting neighbors who either were prostitutes, drug addicts, a couple of them did some porn work, and then there was me, the songwriter. And, you know, I had no bathroom, so I had to share a bathroom down the hall with all of these people. And I had no kitchen, and I wasn't allowed to cook there, so it was a little bit of a challenge. My fantasy of success, I am not joking, my fantasy was to be rich and successful enough to go to McDonald's around the corner and just eat a Happy Meal. And the thing is, that was like my food budget for an entire week.
How your goals shifted so quickly.
Exactly, yes. So, you know, my food budget covered hot dogs, day-old bread, and eggs that were dirt cheap. But when I ran out of money and I just dug behind the cushions of my couch, I found 11 cents. And I went to the supermarket having no idea what I could buy for 11 cents. And I found a can of cat food for 11 cents.
I remember this.
Yes, so do I.
Yeah.
And
it's amazing what sticks with you when you hear these stories, though. So good.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I looked at the label, and it said that the ingredients were 100% tuna. Let's not discuss what parts of the tuna were in that can, but it was tuna, and it was high in protein. And hey, I had 11 cents, and I was really hungry. And that's how I started eating cat food. It wasn't a one-time thing. I realized I could do this cheaply, and with a little bit of mayo, I could eat tuna when I didn't want eggs and hot dogs and moldy bread.
Wow.
When I tell this story, a lot of times people will say to me, "Oh my God, what you sacrificed, that must have been just awful." And I laugh because it was one of the happiest times of my life. Why? I was spending all my time and energy doing what I wanted. I was following my dream. I was writing songs 7 days a week. I was going every Tuesday night to a songwriter showcase that John Verhaney and Len Chandler held. And I was learning. I was like a sponge. I was meeting collaborators, and I got into a workshop, and I had no idea what I didn't know about songwriting until I got into this workshop. And I found out, oh my God, there's this thing called structure in songs. Verses, choruses, bridges. I found that quite offensive. And I'm serious. It's like, you're going to tell me to squash my heartfelt creativity into a box? Oh, no. No, I don't want to do that. I'm an artist. It took me a while to realize that I wasn't altering my message in a negative way. I was getting a container when I used song structure that allowed me to deliver my message to my listener in a way that they could receive it. If they wanted coffee, I wasn't just going to pour hot coffee in their hands. It needed a cup. And that was what song structure represented. I didn't even know that the title was supposed to be in the song. We're not born with this knowledge. And partly that's why I wrote books, to teach people the basics and beyond the basics. But I had no idea. There was a song I wrote. I was sitting outside on my balcony, looking up at the stars and the moon and singing, pouring my angst out to the heavens. And I wrote the song, and it was titled On the Balcony, because I wrote it on the balcony. It had nothing to do with a balcony whatsoever, but I had to learn that the title of a song is the heart of the song. And the rest of the song is not only supposed to lead to the title, but that's what it's there for, is to deliver to the title. So the bottom line is, there I was taking every workshop that there was in Los Angeles. I was starting. Now, I couldn't do demos that cost anything because I was making so little money. So therefore, my ideal collaborator became the person who owned a little 4-track recording studio, could play some of the instruments, I could do the singing, and it was like, okay, that's the way I'll do demos. I did what I could do. As time went by and I wanted more elaborate demos, I became the guinea pig for a recording engineering school where they learned how to record by recording me.
Oh.
And so I got demos for free. Of course, they weren't great, but they were the best I could do. And I think that's what we all have to do, is the best we can do to make things work at the time. So a year went by, and I still didn't own my own Mercedes. And another year went by, and I was getting really tired of cat food. It was, I was getting, excuse me, I have a fur ball. Anyway, so I decided it was time to get not a real job, but at least a temp job, so that I could move out of my one room upstairs in the same horrible building, but I would have a kitchen and a bathroom. I mean, this was practically like Beverly Hills to me. So here's the important part of the story. I didn't just go to a temp agency and say, well, I need some money, give me a job. I researched what were the agencies in Los Angeles that specifically provided temps to the entertainment business, the music business. If I was going to have to, work a day job, at least let it be something where I could learn something and hopefully make connections. And I did find an agency that did that. And I didn't instantly get the kind of job I wanted. No, I did filing for a television station and things like that. But then the gates of heaven opened up and the temp agency sent me for 3 days to RCA Records. And really that had been the dream. That had been why I decided to go with that agency. The problem was they were going to put me in country music promotion. Now, at this
In
point
LA.
in time, in LA,
Yeah.
yes. So at this point in time, to me, country music was an oxymoron, sort of like jumbo shrimp. They don't go together. To me, country was garbage. 3 chords, cheating, stupid, drinking songs and whiny vocals and just garbage. And I just figured, well, at least I'm in the door, but it was like going to be torture to listen to this horrible music all day long. My first hour on the job, my assignment was to take, and I'm telling you, this is a long time ago, to take vinyl 45 singles and stuff them between 2 pieces of cardboard, put them in an envelope, put a little label on them, and mail them to the radio stations. And the single that I was sending out was the debut single by a brand new unknown act called The Judds.
Wow.
Now, that was my literal first real exposure to country music. Being in that department, they were going to be making a lot of the decisions about what the singles were. So we listened to that Judds album pretty much 8 hours a day. And I don't even know how to explain what it did to me. I was so blown away that I swear to you that right now I've got goosebumps up my arms, remembering how I felt hearing Wynona's voice, hearing the harmonies, but hearing the songs. There were no stupid, cheating, drinking, dumb songs. They were brilliant. They were telling stories. They were touching my soul. The production by Brent Mayer was exquisite. I've just never heard. I was in love. And I made up my mind that my goal in life now was to write a hit for the Judds. And while I stayed in that position, RCA was in the golden age of country music. It was just mind-boggling. We had everybody. Alabama, the Oak Ridge Boys, Vince Gill, the list, Dolly Parton, Kenny Rogers. I mean, where else can I even go? Charlie Pride. I was getting steeped in that music day in, day out. As part of my job, feel free to hate me, people, I had to go to all of these concerts and hang out backstage with Dolly and Kenny and listen to their shows from the wings or from the first row. And of course, it was life-changing for me to realize how much I had no idea what country music was. And when I found out, I loved it. Now, let's flash forward. It's a long story. I wound up getting a job in the A&R department at RCA Records. And part of my position, as I grew into it, was screening the songs and the artists who wanted to be, the songs for the artists who didn't write their own on the label and the artists who were trying to get record deals. I had no power. I was the bottom of the ladder. I couldn't sign an act, but I could say no and throw it in the trash pile, or I could forward it to my boss with a note on it saying, I think you need to hear this. What happened is, because I had just spent the past couple of years in the country music department, I was the only person in A&R who really knew country music. So I became the person in Los Angeles. I became the barrier that you had to get through to pitch to any of the country artists on RCA, or to pitch if you wanted to become an RCA country artist through the LA office. And then, of course, everything would have to go to Nashville. And I became, again, just immersed in country music. I still worked with the pop acts on RCA at the time, but I was the country guy in the A&R department. During that time, remember I said my goal was to write a song for the Judds. I got an idea. that I thought was the perfect country song. This was 1986, when a lot of what comprised country music were these clever, cutesy twists on words in the titles. You had, you really had me going, now I'm gone. Don't tell me what to do. Sleeping single in a double bed. All these clever, cutesy things. I came up with, and of course I love, take your tongue out of my mouth because I'm kissing you goodbye. Anyway, but the point being, I had this idea. And a lot of what I do best as a songwriter is come up with ideas. And I'll tell people, you don't have to be able to do everything. If you can do some aspect of songwriting better than other people, great. There will be other people out there for you to collaborate with. So I had this idea. The idea was I had a heart, but you were so horrible to it that now you turned it to stone, and where I had a heart, there's just a heartache. That was my brilliant country twist. And the clever thing was that we were talking about the heart as an actual thing. I had a heart, you turned it to stone. When it needed love, you left it alone. I had a heart, but you made it break. Now, where I had a heart, there's just a heartache. The Judds. Okay. Now, I've got some connections to publishers. Why? Because I'm working at RCA Records. I'm hanging out with them. They want to play me their songs. So, I met with a publisher, and I played him I Had a Heart. And he said to me, this is really good. There's only 4 things wrong with it. I thought, well, that's not that bad, because this is my first country song. Only 4 things wrong with it. He said the 4 things wrong were the words, the music, the verses, and the chorus. Otherwise, it was great. What he meant and what he said was it's a great idea, but you haven't written it like a hit, not melodically and not lyrically. Go back, and he told me what to fix. So I wrote 3 more versions that I brought back one at a time, and each one was getting closer, but it wasn't there yet. And he said to me, have you ever thought about collaborating? I said, yeah, I have collaborated. And he very gently suggested, maybe you need a collaborator on this song to get it to a next level. You've now tried 4 versions. Enter Brian Cumming, who also lived in Los Angeles, but I knew he would be the perfect person to write this with because he came from Georgia. So he must know how to write country music. I don't think Brian had written country songs at that point, but I don't know for sure. Anyway, Brian is amazing, by the way. And I list people on my website for demo services. And if anybody wants to work with Brian, he's on my website. Amazing musician. He can play anything. And he toured with some really big country acts. Anyway, with Brian contributing aspects that I could not possibly have contributed, I'm a really mediocre guitarist, and I had to work long to become that good.
Me too.
I will never be in the league of 90% of the players in Nashville.
Yep.
There's just amazing musicianship there. And Brian was in that league at the top. He went on to play with Katie Oslin and Cleve Francis and, some really successful people. Anyway, Brian added this really swampy, hooky, catchy intro lick. I call them signature licks in my book. And what that is, why is it different from an intro? It's not just taking up 8 bars. It's an instantly identifiable lick that in 2 seconds, somebody knows what that song is. If you want my favorite example of what one is, listen to the Rascal Flatts version of What Hurts the Most. And in like 2 seconds, that guitar lick that Jeffrey Steele came up with, it's just there it is. And it's not part of the rest of the song. It's not a melody you hear in the verse. It's not a melody you hear in the chorus. It's strictly the signature lick that's at the intro. It's in between the first chorus and the second verse. It's at the end. It's an identifiable lick. Brian gave me that, but he gave me so much more. And we rewrote it, and we rewrote it. And after the 7th rewrite, the publisher said, I'm going to send this down to my Nashville office. I think you nailed it. It was like, my God, months had gone by.
That was easy.
Yeah, it was so easy. Only 7 new demos.
Yeah.
And the thing is, Brian could do the demos for free. We were paying Claudia Russell $25 to sing it each time. And that was doable, half of $25 I could manage. Because now I was working at RCA. I wasn't, just living in that one room. That was a Monday when he said he would FedEx it down to his Nashville office. Tuesday morning, I get a phone call from the publisher, and he says, congratulations on your new single. I'm like, what? He said, yeah. When it came into the office, I played it, and there was a producer next door who's cutting on an independent artist, and he said he wants that song. So he went right in and he cut it. It's done already. I was like, what? So that's why I am such a proponent of rewriting. What if I had stopped after the 3rd rewrite, after the 5th rewrite? What if the first time I had said, I love it the way it is. I'm not changing it. It reminds me of the joke, how many songwriters does it take to change a light bulb? None. I'm not changing it. That has not been my story. My story has been consistently rewriting songs because I'm not so brilliant that the first thing that comes out of me is unbeatable. I mean, what is the chance? There's not a word that I could come up with that's stronger. There's not a melody line that could possibly be hookier, more memorable, more unique than the very first thing that popped out of my mind. I'm going to tell you all a secret. Having worked behind the scenes and as a songwriter for decades, the truth of the matter is I am 100% certain that the top 3 reasons songs become hits are melody, melody, and melody.
So that's melody, melody, and...
melody.
Melody.
Yes.
Okay, gotcha.
Yes, very, very good, Tim.
Yes, thanks.
And, we just repeated melody, 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 melody. You know what we did? We used the number 1 tool to make melody burn into the brain, and that is repetition, repetition, and repetition. And let me repeat myself in case you forgot it. The number 1 way to burn melody into the brain is repetition. Now, I want to tell you the story. I could say the song that changed my life, but multiple songs changed my life, took me from one level to a next level that was life-changing. And then there was another one that went to yet a higher level. For instance, 7 rewrites on I Had a Heart led to me having a song on the Grand Ole Opry. It was performed on multiple television shows. It did not earn a lot of money because in 1986, 1987, artists on independent labels in country music had no chance of going above a certain threshold, maybe around 60 on the Billboard charts. It just was not possible to compete with the promotion machine at the major labels. So it didn't go, I think it went to number 63 on Billboard, which was incredible for me to have never published a song. And I've got a song week after week on the Billboard charts.
And your first country song.
My first country song.
Wow.
And based on that first country song, and I do hope to get back to talking about other rewrites and the repetition that went into the Backstreet Boys cut. that was so life-changing. But in fact, let me just go there. When I say repetition, I'm not necessarily saying repeating the exact same melody over and over again. Sometimes that works. Sometimes the repetition is of a rhythm that's set up where the notes change, but the rhythm stays the same. For instance, here's the story on the Backstreet Boys song. You know what? I've got to tell you, how did I get to write with the Backstreet Boys? How is this possible? The answer is that I'm jumping all over the place. When that first country song, I Had a Heart, went up to number 63, the producer, Don Goodman, said, I would love to write with you next time you're in Nashville. I said, let's put it in the books. Of course, I had never been to Nashville. I didn't have enough money to go to Nashville, and I had only written one country song, and I find out that Don Goodman has written 6 #1 iconic country singles, including, by the way, Old Red, that Blake Shelton redid and had another #1 with. But he had written, Ring on Her Finger, Time on Her Hands, that Reba recorded. And I mean, I have written one country song, and he wants to write
literally one country song.
Yes. And I spent the next 2 weeks sitting every spare moment coming up with what I called song starts, titles, concepts, phrases of lyrics, melodic snippets that I would sing into a recorder, so that I wouldn't show up there terrified and brain dead to write with this huge hit writer. And so I came in with about a dozen of those. And I maxed out my credit card, and I flew to Nashville for the first time, and Don stood me up. Never showed up for our writing appointment. And his publisher felt awful about it. And she went down the hall, and she said, let me see if I can find somebody else who's around here to write with you. And she came back, and she said, Jason, this here's AJ Masters. AJ, this here's Jason. Y'all go right ahead now. And we did. Because we took a lyric that I had brought with me, completely finished, verse, chorus, and in 45 minutes, AJ and I wrote the melody, and AJ wrote the bridge that slayed me. AJ was the most brilliant, most beautiful-hearted soul. Anybody who knew AJ loved him, and he died way too early, just absolutely heartbreaking, and wrote some great songs for Randy Travis. He wrote An Old Pair of Shoes. He wrote Faith Hill's Love Ain't Like That. Man, I could do a whole 2 hours on some of his stories. But AJ and I wrote Change My Mind. And his publisher, remember, I don't have a publisher. I've just published one song. I don't have a publishing deal. His publisher said they would take care of the demo, and AJ would, work with them and do the demo. It's an important point I want to add in. AJ was also an independent artist. He was a fabulous singer, but he did not sing the demo because he wasn't the right voice. I think it's so important to have the right voice on the demo. I'm a really good singer. I never sing my demos. I have probably sung 2 demos out of 1,000 songs. It's really ironic. Somebody sent me a rough recording of a song that we had done, just a guitar vocal demo on 22 years ago, and I sang it, and I listened to it, and I went, man, there was no tuning back then. I was good, but I'm not the right voice for the kind of songs that I write. So anyway, they did this amazing demo. The singer was the top demo singer in Nashville at the time, John Wesley Riles. He was singing 11, 12 demos a day at that point in time. So anyway, and I just have to, while I'm wandering all over the place, I'll also tell you, demo singers are so amazing and relatively inexpensive. Why would I sing my demo when I was able to get Gretchen Wilson, or I was able to get Buddy Jewell, and
Oh, wow.
you know, so many other people. When I moved to Nashville, the top demo singer for a female demo was Trisha Yearwood. Joe Diffie did demos, Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson. I mean, that's where the bar is.
Yeah.
So if you're thinking, oh, it's not important, it's only a demo, not true. And the same holds true on the pop side. I've critiqued a song that was demoed by a 16-year-old kid who wound up calling herself Pink. And I know people who've had Kelly Clarkson on demos.
Wow.
You know, obviously way back in the day. So I have no idea where I was before I went off on this tangent. But, oh, okay.
Right after you read the song.
Now we've got this song that is 1,000 times better than anything I've ever written. And the demo, to my ear, sounds like a finished record. And the reason it would sound like a finished record is the musicians that I could get back then. Not that I did it, his publisher did. But once I signed my deal, my demo band was Garth Brooks' recording band.
Yep.
The exact same people who played on Garth Brooks' albums were playing on my demos. And a lot of times people will say to me, well, I can play guitar, I can play bass. Yes, you can. But can you come up with the radio-friendly licks that these players have their finger on the pulse of? So now I've got this unbelievable song, this unbelievable demo, and my life changes overnight, right? No. 3.5 years later,
wow,
everybody in Nashville has passed on this song, probably twice. And I get a call, finally. It's on hold for the Oak Ridge Boys.
Were you still in LA?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, definitely. And I'll continue the story on from there, and you'll see how I wound up not being in LA. The Oak Ridge Boys were huge. At this point in time, everything they did went to number one. I mean, there wasn't even a question about it. And it was like getting a cut with Rascal Flatts at their peak, or getting a cut with, Florida Georgia Line. I mean, that's how big they were. They had won Grammys. And not only is my song on hold, they love it so much, they're saying they think it's going to be a single. This was the first time I ever had a song on hold. And they recorded the song, which is like a miracle, because I have had years since then where I've had 30 songs go on hold, real legitimate holds, from the producer, from the head of A&R, from the artist. I had Reba McEntire personally call my publisher's office to place a song on hold, and have 0 out of 30 get recorded and released. That particular year, which I'm still recovering from, I actually did have several songs recorded by Reba, John Berry, and Lori Morgan, and none of them were released, because it's not uncommon for an artist of that stature to record 20 songs or more and then narrow it down back then to 10 or 11. Now maybe it's 12, 13. So anyway, I got my first cut, my Oak Ridge Boys cut, and they sent me a recording of it. And I listened to it, and I laughed hysterically, because it was a practical joke. It was so unbelievably horrible. It was hilarious. Just like chalk on a board, 4 voices. I wouldn't even honor it by calling it harmony. And they added this just unbelievable like thing in the melody of the chorus that was it part of the chorus in the middle. It went, with a look, with a touch, and now I hear 4 out of tune voices sing, with a look, with a touch, And I'm like, oh my God, and I'm laughing and laughing. And that is the finished single. And it is slated to be their next single. And it's following a #1 single. And everybody says, of course it's going to be #1. Everything they do is #1. And I'm saying to people, have you heard it? It's horrible. They're like, people love the Oak Ridge Boys. It's just not what you expected. You've got, and I love this term, demo love. You're used to the demo. You're used to the way John Wesley Riles sang it. I'm like, I don't think so. I think it's just horrible. But now I own my publishing, my share of the publishing on the next Oak Ridge Boys single. I have now been meeting with publishers all over LA, and every publisher has turned me down, including Change My Mind, that I would play them. They would just all pass on it. No, 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 no. I must have gotten 100 no's. Same deal with Nashville publishers. Nobody was the least bit interested. Now I get to bring a juicy little carrot to the negotiating table. If you sign me to a staff writing deal, I will bring you my share of the publishing of the next Oak Ridge Boys single. Wow. Suddenly, every person who turned me down is in a bidding war to sign me.
Wow.
Let's have lunch. Let's go out to get some drinks after work and talk about why you should sign with my company. It was incredible, even though a little voice in the back of my head kept saying, but it's horrible. It can't possibly be a hit. So I was very poor at this time. It's a long story, but even though I had been working at RCA, I had had some huge expenses. I was up to my neck in debt. I didn't think there was any way I was ever going to see the light of day. So therefore, out of all the offers on the table, which one did I choose? The one that offered me the lowest amount of money as an advance. Huh? Is he really even stupider than he looks? Here's why. The money that you're advanced as a staff writer, every penny of it gets recouped, presuming that you make money for the company. If you don't make money, they're going to drop you. But any money that you make is going to go toward, when I say any, depending on how your contract is worded, money that you make is going to go toward recouping you before you see another penny.
In
so
recouping, for people that don't know what,
it means, sure, it means that any money that you were advanced, when money comes in, they're going to take that back and keep that to offset what they've given you before you see another penny.
Right.
So essentially, the money you're given as a staff writer is a loan.
Almost a loan, yeah.
Right, with the understanding that you don't have to pay it back if you don't make money for the company, but then you're going to be saying you want fries with that. So why would I pick the lowest advance? Because I picked the company that could offer me the greatest amount of opportunity, the greatest chance to have success down the line. Why did I believe that Zomba, that I signed a deal with, would offer me the most opportunities? First of all, they owned a record label. They owned Jive Records, which was a pop and urban label. They signed the very first rap act, so you can blame them for it. And but they went on, not that I had a crystal ball, but they went on to sign some unknown acts named Britney Spears, the Backstreet Boys, and NSYNC. Guess how I got to write with Britney Spears and several of the Backstreet Boys? Because we were signed to the same company. And that is exactly why I chose that company. They didn't, I'm not sure Britney and Backstreet were born or were out of diapers back then, but I knew there would be opportunities that I wouldn't have at other companies.
So these are very strategic moves that you made. And
yes,
sacrificing on top of your sacrifices throughout the years, then you're sacrificing, less of an advance for the opportunity, which is
right.
Golden.
There were two other things that Zomba offered that no other company could offer me. One is they had offices literally around the world. I didn't want to be limited to Nashville. I was a pop writer. I was a country writer. I was writing dance music. I grew up with a lot of different kind of music, and I couldn't just do one genre. I would have been bored stiff. Zomba had offices in New York, LA, Nashville, London, all over the world. I wanted that. But here's another thing, more goosebumps. The head of Zomba, Mike Hollinsworth, who signed me, was the most, how does one say this tactfully, the most brutal song critiquer. He ripped my songs to shreds with no attempt to soften the blow.
No regard for human life.
Exactly. He actually at one time stopped a song that I had just played him a rough version of, threw it across the desk and said to me, if I want a piece of shit like this, I'll go stop some amateur out on Music Row. Now go write me something I can pitch. But he then would tell me how to fix it. He would say to me in his arrogant style, this second verse sucks. It's not taking me anyplace new. Where's there a line here that that an artist is going to say, oh man, I love that line. There's nothing. He said, where's your melody and your chorus? I can't sing it back. Go write me a chorus that I can't get out of my head. Now get the hell out of here. And he made me a songwriter. And he believed in me, and he kept signing me again when I wasn't having successes, because I kept getting these super unbelievable close calls, 30 songs on hold, people cutting a song and then not releasing it. So it was just, I was having this horrible run of luck. And it actually took, I sort of forgot this little detail. After I signed my publishing deal, which again, I only got because I could bring something to the table, which was the publishing on Change My Mind. It was going to be the next Oak Ridge Boys single. After the ink was dry on my deal, I have the honor of saying that I wrote the lowest charting single in the history of the Oak Ridge Boys' illustrious career. Wow. I wasn't nuts. It sucked. It was horrible. And I believe it spent 2 weeks on the Billboard charts. When everything else went to number one, there were 75 places on the Billboard country chart. It entered at 73, and the next week it went to 75, and then it was gone.
Wow.
So, like, you've heard of songs having a bullet.
Yeah.
This one had an anchor. And it was beyond devastating.
So they did not get the windfall they were expecting with your deal.
No. But I did. I got locked in to a publishing deal. Now, when you do a staff writing deal, it's almost always that the company gets multiple years of options, meaning they get, at the end of a year, they get to decide whether they re-sign your contract or not. You might say, I don't want to be here anymore, but if they say, we're picking up your option, you're there. But
and for the same amount, or do you renegotiate that?
For the amount that has been pre-negotiated for each year. So in other words, for instance, maybe your first year was going to be 25,000, and if they picked up the option, the second year might be 30, the next year might be 35. You don't get the option to say, I want to stay. If they don't want you, you're gone. But it's really interesting that you would bring up that pre-negotiated amount, because my amounts were negotiated based on the assumption that I'm about to have a #1 Oak Ridge Boys single. When that didn't occur, and it came time to pick up the option at the end of the year, I spent 3 months in a low-level panic attack, and I'm really only partly joking, thinking my dreams are just now going to come to an end. By the way, from the time I moved to LA until I signed that staff writing deal was 11 and a half years. So now,
what?
Yes.
Wow.
Yes. It took 7 years in LA before I had a Heart. Hit number 63.
7 years.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. You know, 7 is the magic number. I told you I had 7 rewrites on I Had a Heart. I had 7 rewrites on my second Britney Spears cut.
Wow. And
I don't know if I'll get to talk about that. Well, I'll just tell you very quickly that on that song, they loved, the label just said, this is a must cut for Britney, but we hate the ending, the third verse. And they told me what they wanted, and I gave them 6 more of them. And they said every single one of these 6 would work, but Britney has her own idea for how the song might end. She's never written a song before. Would you be willing to sit down with her? So my co-writer, Eugene Wild, and I said, let's see, should we do this?
I don't know if I have the time.
I know.
I have to do my laundry next week.
I know, and it's a lot of nerve. How dare she ask me, after she has already had, oh, baby, baby, she's like the biggest pop star in the world.
Oh, yeah.
That's a lot of audacity to ask me to change my art. Yes. So it was the 7th rewrite. And then I got to produce Britney's vocal on that demo. So it was an amazing opportunity. So anyway, bottom line is, after I Had a Heart, I wrote Change My Mind, and then it took 3.5 more years to get the Oak Ridge Boys cut that was in the can for a while before it came out. So until I actually signed my staff writing deal was 11 and a half years from the time I moved to Los Angeles. So
and
now,
it was 11 and a half years until you got the Oak Ridge Boys cut coming out.
Correct.
And that's when
11 and a half years until I could say I earn a living as a songwriter.
Wow.
It wasn't great living, but it was enough.
Yeah.
So that I hope to tell you in a second about how I lived in Nashville initially, but I don't want to forget to say that you had brought up about the amounts being pre-negotiated for your subsequent years of your staff writing deal. Those amounts were negotiated, predicated on the assumption that I'm going to have a #1 single. Instead, I have a humiliating stiff. And the publisher says to me at the end of a year, okay, we really believe in you. We like what you're doing, but you didn't earn us any money. Remember that amount we negotiated? Forget it. If you want to be here another year, you'll take $10,000 less. Okay? I did it. I said yes. I knew it was where I needed to be, and I had to take a part-time job to survive. What I did, you have to realize at this point I'd had many years at RCA Records behind the scenes, so I had the skills necessary, and I got a part-time job next door to my publisher's office, so I could just walk in right after work, and I became the production coordinator for an awesome producer named Steve Gibson, and I got to work on the technical side, meaning like album credits, booking sessions, hiring the musicians that he would tell me to hire for huge sessions. We produced Randy Travis, Aaron Tippin at his peak, and a lot of other artists. So again, more knowledge, more connections, while I had to earn a living.
More immersion.
Yeah. So now another year goes by and there's no big money. There's no money coming in to Zomba. And now they say to me, well, we'll sign you again under two circumstances. One, we're cutting the money again.
Oh my God.
Number two, you are splitting your time between LA and Nashville, which I was at that time. I was still spending a lot of time in LA. And they said, your competition is giving it 1,000% in Nashville. You want a deal? Move to Nashville. That's how I moved to Nashville. So now it took another, I think my middle name should be Persistence. It took another 3 years before I finally broke through. And at the same time, had singles on Billboard's country, 2 on the country chart, 1 on the pop chart, 1 on the R&B chart. 6 months before that happened, they said they were going to drop me if I didn't have a hit by the end. And I said to them, I will have one. I feel it in my soul as much as I've ever known anything. I left the office and I hired an independent song plugger to give my songs a boost. Why? Because Zomba was a small company. We had 11 or 12 staff writers. They, among their staff writers, were the writers of I Swear, Song of the Decade in the 80s. We had the writer of Love Can Build a Bridge for the Judds. Massive writers. That was my competition. When a big artist came into the office, they're going to listen to 3 songs, 5 songs, your best shot. Whose songs are they going to play? Mine, who's never had a hit, or the writers who have Grammys? I hired a plugger. Am I recommending that to anybody else? Yes. Listen to my words. If you already have a track record, if you are already a staff writer, if you have already had successful songs. Why am I saying that? Because in all my years of teaching the BMI workshops, I think it's 29 years that I'm teaching those. And for most of those years, I had 50 students every month. I have taught all around the world. Before COVID, I was hitting 7 countries a year. In all that experience, I have, listened to this word, I have never met one person who got their first big breakthrough by paying an independent plugger. I'm waiting for it to happen. It may happen tomorrow, but I don't like those odds. And let me tell you why. If you are not writing songs that right now, I'll deal with country first, that are not competitive with Ashley Gorley, Luke Laird, Dallas Davidson, Shane McAnally, that's your competition, not the other people in your songwriting group. And if your songs are at that level, you should have been able to sign a publishing deal or to have had some success. And if they're not at that level, it doesn't matter what you pay an independent plugger because they are not going to get your songs cut. I have seen countless students tell me, oh, I spent $10,000 over the last 2 years on pluggers, and they got me holds, and they got me close calls, and they got this. And it was all bullshit in a lot of those instances. I'm not saying that there are not legitimate pluggers. There are. But if you are not at that absolute top echelon and they represent you, their credibility is gone. People know in the business who those people are. And when a
Totally.
song comes in from them, it just gets deleted.
Yep.
It goes in the trash or it gets laughed at.
Mm-hmm.
So I signed with an independent plugger at a point when I had 5 years as a staff writer and I had a heart, I'd had an Oak Ridge Boys recording. I was not at the bottom. And my independent plugger was a closet songwriter. She didn't want anybody to know that she was writing songs secretly. Rightly so, because I wouldn't have hired a songwriter to plug my songs, because I would have thought she's going to plug her own songs before mine. So that plugger got my song to John Berry to change my mind. 5.5 years, 5 years after the Oak Ridge Boys debacle, she got John Berry to record the song. It changed my life. It went top 5, and it would not have happened without her. And in that same period of time, I had the other cuts as well. By the way, that plugger at the time, who was the secret songwriter, was secretly writing with a kid named Taylor Swift. And my plugger's name was Liz Rose. And she went on to have countless mega hits with Taylor Swift.
Wow.
I think she had 6 number ones at least. You Belong to Me, Tim McGraw. I mean, on and on.
Yeah.
She wrote. So that is how things really started for me.
The amount of just pure sacrifice is really incredible. To have the deal, to have them come back, renegotiate the deal in the worst way after each year, and then for you to put up your own money in the middle of that to hire a song plugger is just incredible. It's the stories are just amazing, and I hope people really understand that you have to really, you have to sacrifice so many things when you're trying to do something like this, and for that many years, and put up your own money, invest in yourself. I mean, that is investing in yourself over and over and over again. And then to me, that just is such a massive investment in yourself when you're getting less money from your publishing deal each year. And then you put up your own money to hire a song plugger because you just believe in what you're doing that much.
I want to add something, though. I think there's another element that is really crucial. Everything you just said is so important, to believe in yourself, to do whatever you have to do. I never had a plan B. I never had a deadline for if it doesn't happen by now.
You got to burn the boats.
My deadline was if I don't make it by the time I'm 100, maybe I'll go back to school. There was no plan B. But there's another aspect. I have seen people be completely committed in believing themselves and going to any lengths to make it happen, but they didn't have the goods. And by the goods, I mean, in most of those instances, they were writing songs that were good, that were perfectly crafted. Perfectly crafted will not get you what you want. It's an amazing place to get to. Bravo, if you can write a perfectly crafted song. Now, your challenge is to take that perfectly crafted song and be sure it has melodic, rhythmic, lyrical concepts, a concept for the whole song that is going to be powerful enough to make the artist say, oh my God, you've got to hear what I just found. I'm going to bump my own song off this album because I just found a slam dunk #1 hit.
And that's a really good point, because you're dealing with, there's a lot of money involved when you have artists that are writing for themselves and you're trying to get your song cut. So you're up against so many different things one of them being they want to cut their own songs so that they make the money off of the publishing.
Right. And there may also be instances where what's going to happen is the artist is going to hear your song and say, I love this, I have to cut this, but I want to contribute to this song. So not just I want to put my name on it. I think that there's a fallacy that a lot of people think that's what artists all do. They just want to put their name on it and get the money. But in my experience, when artists have been involved in the songs, they have seriously contributed to the songs and made them their own. And
I've done that myself, yeah.
Yeah, whether it was changing phrasing or melody or something in the lyric that made it feel like something they would say.
Exactly.
I have never had an artist say, I'm just putting, well, that's not true. I once had an artist say, I'm putting my name on this song, but he actually did think he had contributed something. And it turned out that what he contributed did not make the final recording. So in reality, he did not contribute. But I've never had somebody just say, put my name on the song or I'm not recording it. I'm not saying it never happens, but my point is we have to write something that is going to jump out of the damn pile and convince the artist this is the one I have to either get involved in or cut it as is, even if it means bumping my own song or bumping the collaboration between, the top 5 songwriters on earth. That's how good we've got to be. And it's not magic. Ask yourself, look over your lyric. Where are the lines that are going to slay somebody?
Yes.
The lines that are going to make a writer say, God, I wish I had thought of that.
The FU lines.
Brilliant.
The FU lines.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. The money line.
Yes.
And the money melodies.
Yes.
The line that melodically just makes you go, oh my God, I can't get this song out of my brain. And I love that line. And we've got to give the listeners that, or guess what? They're not going to pick our songs. So it's that easy. There, wasn't that easy?
There you
Just
go.
write freaking amazing sons that will beat out everybody else's. There's your lesson.
Thank you, and you're welcome.
Buy all my books. Then success is guaranteed.
There you go. I don't know if you have an answer for this, but is there how much of songwriting can be learned, and how? It's a very esoteric question.
No, it's not.
And how much is it a? For me, I believe there's talent, and then there's skill.
Right.
So how much do you believe in, someone having a talent, a natural inclination to write songs, and then how much of that is skill, which is, putting in the 10,000 hours and writing 1 million songs?
It's a question that as a teacher, I almost would rather not answer.
Right.
Because the true answer is I can teach almost anyone to write a perfectly crafted song.
Mm-hmm.
I can give anybody the tools that they need to dig deeper by saying to them, okay, in this line of lyric, how can you express this exact same thing in a way that is so fresh, in a way I have never heard it said before, in a way that is just going to make my head spin around. I won't accept less than that. Now go do it. Or I might say the same thing with a melody. What I do when I teach is I look at what works in the smash hit songs, in the mega hits. Why is this melody a number one? Why is this melody burned into the brain? I can teach people to do that tool, but Ashley Gorley is going to come up with a line that most people will never come up with.
Mm-hmm.
However, with enough persistence, tenacity, and like me, stubborn refusal to give up, I think we can sometimes push ourselves to achieve what might come more easily and naturally for somebody else. I've seen that happen, in fact.
Well, that makes total sense. It's like it would be just like an athlete who just has amazing natural talent, but you take an athlete that has good talent and he trains harder than everyone, works harder than everyone, and he becomes the superstar.
Yes, exactly right. And that's not to say that the person with pure natural talent won't also be the superstar, but I don't rule anybody out because I have seen some of my students evolve from a place where I frankly did not give them much hope. Mm-hmm. And I've seen them go to a point where they are publishing songs. And by the way, 6 people who have studied with me have had #1 singles.
Wow.
So I know it's not impossible. And I know plenty of them have also signed publishing deals. So I think it's persistence, and I think it's a matter of being willing to say, I will not settle until I've done the 7th rewrite, if that's what it takes. And I want to sort of underline that I told you, I think melody, melody, melody are the 3 most important reasons why songs become hits today. And that means rewriting melody, melody, and melody. And that can be tough for a lot of people.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been absolutely amazing. Your stories, I absolutely love this stuff. And your story and stories are incredible and inspirational, aspirational. I know you're going to help a lot of people that are listening and watching this on YouTube and all of that. So I can't thank you enough. I want to talk a little bit about, all the other things that you have going on, your courses, your books, where everybody can find you, all that fun stuff.
Okay. I guess the main thing would be go to jasonblume.com, JASONBLUME.com. Now, at that website, first thing you can find is 85 songwriting articles that I've written for 2 different magazines, and I am promising you that almost any question that you could ask is going to be answered in one of those articles, or in 5 of those articles, whether it's a business question, a craft question about melody, a craft question about lyrics. I have had people say to me, it feels so arrogant, but they've said to me, I learned more from your 85 articles than from 4 years in a music college. Right. Because it's real life stuff. I'm interviewing the top publishers, writers, artists. I'm analyzing why songs are hits. So you have that available to you for free under the 2 categories, Songwriting Articles 1, Songwriting Articles 2, or it might say Songwriting Tips. I can't remember. They're free, no sign up, no nothing. They're just there. Click on them and you can learn from them. On my website, you'll see that I have books available. I don't sell them, but they're at Amazon.com. And what I do sell that a lot of people have just told me that it's been life-changing, I have 4 different things that you can download that are audio lectures on specific topics: melodies, lyrics, how to take care of business, and placing songs in television and film. And each one of them is like an entire class with me and includes resources. In some instances, actual contracts. In some instances, exercises for you to practice what's on there. And in terms of my workshops, my next BMI workshop is full with a long waiting list. But at my website, if you click on BMI workshops, you'll see the next one is in January. Every song at the workshop gets considered to be sent to up to 12 publishers. We've had deals, and also I critique those songs that don't get sent. So I don't know what the registration opening will be for the January workshop, but check on the website. It'll be at least a month before the workshop. And the last thing that I offer only rarely, but if you're interested, here's the deal. I do a webinar limited to 7 people. It is extremely advanced and in-depth song critique. I've listened to every song 3 to 5 times in advance, and then during the webinar, spend 20 to 30 minutes per song. So it is very intensive but it is audition only. And if you're interested in auditioning, go to contact us on the website, send a song, and write, I'm interested in being notified when you do webinars. My time is really tight, so I've only been doing a few a year lately, but I love them. That's
Perfect.
it. So just do all of those things, hang in there, and success is guaranteed.
I love it. Thank you so much for being on. Jason Blume, everybody.
You're so welcome, and you're awesome, Tim.
Thank you, buddy. I appreciate it.
Take care. Bye.